Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for joining the show. I have back with me Christopher James, and we did a part one to what we're going to discuss today, and this is part two. So I hope you stay tuned for the series of videos that we are going to present to you talking about common law. So welcome again, Christopher. Nice to see you again.
Good morning, Amina, and nice to see you as well.
Good morning. So really enjoyed our last interview, and we got right into talking about common law. And we started first off with the birth certificate and how important the falseness of the birth certificate is and what our parents are signing over to the system. And we've learned a little bit about that. So let's continue on from there. And anyone who didn't watch that, I encourage you to go back and watch that interview and hear that first part about the birth certificate. It's really important. You can also go to awarrior.com, awarriorcalls.com. I will have the link. It'll be on the video for you to see. So definitely go there. All the documentation, all the information is there to get you caught up. So let's get into it from here. I do want to start with a question that was asked, from that first interview. And it's a little bit hard to understand, so I'm going to do my best in reading this. If there is anyone else here from New Brunswick, I guess this person's from New Brunswick, you can't get it. There was legislation passed that will not allow you to have it, meaning your birth certificate. Spoke to the Registrar General, and they will not allow you to have, wait for it, your own protection. Makes sense to you? Those were his exact words. So there you go.
Isn't that something, Amina? Well, I would also like to say I thoroughly enjoyed our first part, our conversation. To those of you that did listen, thank you so much. And here it was an enormous amount of information and truth that we laid at your feet there very quickly if you've never heard about these facts before. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that what Amina is doing here is so important, because we're not here talking about opinions. We're talking about concrete facts. And this wonderful response that came back, I'm glad that this came through and we're able to address this. The man or woman who wrote that to you is absolutely right. They've started doing this. The Service Corporation, which is known as the Government of New Brunswick or whatever handles their Service New Brunswick side, like Service Ontario here. This is the corruption that is now coming out. And it's not actually the birth certificate, that they will not give you. It is the hospital record. It's that founding document that we showed on the call last week, which I have here again. I can show people. It's this record here that comes from the hospital. Okay, it's a 2-in-1, a hospital, and then the bond outside. This is known as what they say is the long form birth certificate, and yet nowhere on that document does it say long form birth certificate. What they're referring to, what they will give you, is the birth certificate. And they've changed these now from the wallet size, what they used to be with the red CUSIP number, to, I don't have one. I have one on my computer people have sent me, but they're a much larger form now. And they've replaced the CUSIP number that we talked about with barcodes. Okay. So it's the same corruption. It's the same document that you had no knowledge, you had nothing to correct it. So yes, they are doing this in New Brunswick. And what I'm starting to realize now, not realize, but we can also create our ID without having that original document. Okay, because this document here, the birth certificate, this came as an extraction, as it says right on, it's an extraction from the the hospital record or whatever. So we can simply use this, I guess you could say, this trespass that's occurred against us as evidence within our ID. We can still draw to it because there's a birth date that's on there, and that birth date still represents the day that we were born that matches it. So you can use that in the documentation, which I'm actually going to create a template for to help people out in New Brunswick or whatever. But at the end of the day, this stuff is all going to go away hopefully in the next month and a half or 2 months because of the claim. As I have to remind everybody, the Sukleski Court, go to my website, awarriorcalls.com, and if you have not, once you're inside the site and you've subscribed, go to the case file numbers. It's the case file number 2, and download the Sukleski Court and Claim PDF. Why? Because within that PDF now is the enormous light and truth that's coming forward to this world. It's going to correct everything that everyone's scared about, from chemtrails to 5G to the COVID-19. It's all going to be outed simply because, and I have to say this up front, Amina, is there's one thing, 20 years of my work that I've looked into this, and I've made this very simple now for everybody to understand what's going on. The rules of civil procedure do not apply to we the people. That is the only question, if you look at the filing that is being drilled home right now, because this claim, our property now has been under attack for the last 2 weeks by people from the bar trying to throw this claim out of the courthouse. These people have no standing in this. We don't know who these people are. Some people are from the Attorney General's office. They're all playing their legal games, but they have no standing in the Sukleski court. And it's very simple, and they're trying to say that it must be removed from a public courthouse because it's not falling under the rules of civil procedure. So I just wanted to touch on that before we get into more of the court systems here today, because that is the key to everything. I want every man and woman to know we are right on the edge now of finally blowing the doors open on all of this corruption. All we have to do is show everybody in this country that the rules of civil procedure don't apply to us. And once that claim remains in that courthouse, Amina, it's game on. Because now all of this truth, when you look at that claim, even though it's about an estate act, or an estate of a man named Michael Sukleski and his father, it's being administrated without their right. When the entire country sees simply that the rules of civil procedure don't apply to us, it's game on. Now, all of a sudden, our public courthouses are going to be open for business, so to speak. And that's when the rubber's really going to hit the road. Mass filings, I know, are going to occur in this country on behalf of the people that have this truth and know this truth. So it's a very exciting time.
It really is, you know, unprecedented for sure. And we hear that often. So it starts with the birth certificate, and that's where we want to get people going, is starting with their birth certificate and the authentication of its true value and what that means, and getting that long form from the registrar's office. So they need to start there. And then, as you're saying, we are going to start looking into the court system. So let's continue from there where you want to take this.
Okay. Yeah, so that's great. So just kind of closing off the ID side, the birth certificate, the reason you have to go there first, as we've said, if you missed it last week, why this is so powerful is because this trespass has happened to every single man and woman, not only in this country, but in the world. It is absolutely huge. We are all collectively coming together and addressing the very first trespass that has occurred against all of us with our first breath. That's why it's so important, and it simply comes down to those rules of civil procedure. So now that we've got that out of the way, and you need to, as I said before, you need to learn who you are not before you can learn who you are. And we've laid this out very simply between my website and our conversation that we've done here. Amina, it's so important that people understand that trespass that occurs and why the documentation is so important when you move forward in your life. So let's now get to the courthouse. We talked a little bit about Norman Traversy last week, and I hopefully will be able to bring him on in our next show, which would be terrific. Norman is a wonderful man, and at that time we'll be able to go over in more depth what the vehicle and the venue and how he accessed the public courthouse and the processes that he's been trying to do within the legal world. And that's going to be a great conversation, because we're going to be able to show everybody the two sides of the coin, what happens when you go in the legal world and what happens when you stay on the common law side, which unfortunately my fellow man and women, especially Norman, have not been given this truth. And like I said, I stand shoulder to shoulder with Norman Traversy. His entire case is on my website. Even though that the filing is incorrect, as I've addressed, what we're going to correct hopefully for him, I'm standing with him shoulder to shoulder, because he's an incredible man. He sees the wrong and harm that's going on here, so he's doing everything he can. And that's why everybody needs to come to these shows that you're doing. Everyone needs to see the simplicity of this truth that we're bringing forward, because the system is terrified right now. It's terrified. The people are finally about to find out all this corruption that's been going on against them at our public courthouses. So let's start with that first word there, public. Okay, it is a public courthouse. They're not a private courthouse. And people say, well, where's a public courthouse? Well, we pay for all provincial, all federal courthouse buildings, superior courthouses and provincial courthouses. That's a public courthouse, a venue where we, the people, are supposed to have access to move our claims and court if there's been a wrong or harm that's occurred against us, a trespass. See how simple that is? It's always the same handful of words. I mean, it's always, I claim trespass. And then after you put, this is on your filing, I claim trespass. And after trespass, you put in square brackets what the trespass is. Theft, breach of contract, they've damaged my property, they've terrorized me, whatever it is. And then after the square brackets, it says, did cause wrong and harm, and or harm. And then your second line is, I require the immediate restoration of property. Because as I teach and I show people, those are the three words you have to master: trespass, property, and the word who. Because when you learn the power of the word trespass and property, trespass covers everything. Everything, Amina, under the sun, from, you know, theft, damage to your property, contract, if someone's terrorizing you, whatever. Okay, it covers everything. If someone, you know, if you fall, you break your arm, if you're even mentally and emotionally being damaged, that's harm. So trespass, that's why you only use that one word, and then you can simply describe it after that. Property is just as powerful. This is why people need to use as few as words as possible. That's the game, the sick game that's being played at our public courthouses. It's all based on paper. It's based on the words that are on the paper and how those courts are moving. And when you master the words and you understand the game that's going on, it's a piece of cake to stay out of the legal jurisdiction. So that second word that we're talking about, property. Property includes everything to a man or woman. Your rights are your property. Anything that's exclusive to, as we touched on before, could be your boat, your home, your car, even your children. You refer to them as your property until they're of the correct age where they are consciously able to, act like an adult or defend themselves if they need be. Remember, he who creates owns, or pardon me, he who creates owns whatever you're creating, and controls it. So, it's not when people first hear this, when we talk about a mother and father, they're also in a very exclusive relationship if they've been married. We know there's different types of relationships today, but in that very foundational sense, that man or woman, they are each other's property, because under the eyes of the Lord, when they committed themselves to each other to be married, they gave an exclusivity to each other. Okay, and it's that simple. Like, they're your property. You don't cause, especially for the man, the matriarch. So I'm not being chauvinistic here, but for the home, I mean, we all have a duty, both of us, the mother and the father, the husband and wife, to protect, that property that's within that home in which we've created and which we have our wonderful children are living in. So it's very powerful when you understand those words, property, and that's the only word that you have to address when you're in court. That's why you say, who claim my property, right? You say that to the man or woman wearing the robe. Right? That's how you're establishing jurisdiction, which is control when you're in that court. You're addressing it right away, because in every single court case that people are walking into, aside from the Sukleski claim that I have recently filed and the Maneri claim that got ripped out of the courthouse last year, unbeknownst to us, and this is why this is all coming to a head now, because the people are starting to finally see where the corruption lies in our public courthouse. And after 20 years of enormous research, I mean, it comes down to this one sentence: the rules of civil procedure, because that's what this system is hanging its entire career on right now, because they know that they're in trouble, and they have to be able to prove, which we can bring on when Norman's here next week, which I'll do. I'll send you ahead of time from the Superior Court of Justice, their annual filings. You're going to read right in, and Amina, and everyone else has to see it, where the rules of civil procedure come from, who wrote them. And it's simply a man that's acting as the Attorney General, which is a man working for a service corporation, and a few of his other fellow people. But these people are all members of what? The bar. Okay, it has nothing to do, unless you're property, see that word comes up, unless you're property of the bar, or the man or woman who's acting as Attorney General, or any of the people, whether it was one man or woman, or if it was 1,000 people that wrote the rules of civil procedure. And none of that still applies to us as a man or a woman, because we did not consent to it. It's words on a piece of paper. We have a right to access that courthouse and move our claim in court outside of the bar. And this is what Norman, unfortunately, has not done. He's used their legal forms. And as soon as you use the legal forms, like I say, take the word Canada out of there and put the word McDonald's. If Norman went into that public courthouse and he saw in front of him, well, I can either file my own paperwork, which establishes the correct jurisdiction because it's a man filing it. There's no legalese or words or rules of civil procedure that apply, or I can use McDonald's rules of civil procedure here. I think see how simple that is for everyone to understand, because that's what's going on. The people that are providing services to you, they work for the Ontario government or whichever province you work for in your public courthouses, and they are a service corporation. They are people working, providing you good faith services. Nothing that they create. It's like I said, it'd be like McDonald's if they just had a contract for a year to bring in and staff all of our public courthouses. That's wonderful. That's terrific. I could care less who is in that public courthouse as long as they know and understand the rights of the people, as long as they ensure. And here's the other word that we're talking now that's very powerful about the courthouse. Remember I said to you that trespass covers every type of trespass that could occur against you? There's one other trespass, Amina, and that is trespass on the case. People say, well, what's trespass on the case, Chris? Well, that's what happens when your paperwork, when your property, when you filed your claim in court at a public courthouse, when a man or woman in that public courthouse trespasses against your case. Remember, they have no standing in your case. They're simply there to move a process forward. The only people that are going to make a decision on whether your claim, not a complaint, is true or not is the jury of your peers, not some man or woman that's wearing a robe that's working again for the service corporation within that public building. And this is how they've been able to keep everybody out and block everybody, because what they do is as soon as they see a filing coming in that does not have any legal rules of civil procedure, or we're not using their legal forms, immediately these bar members, these parasites that are wearing these black robes, they kick it out of the court. They're saying this does not fall under the rules of civil procedure. We're returning this back to you. Of course, they keep your money as well. You know, the $240 or whatever it is that you pay now, which is also sickening. But this is how powerful this has all come to after 20 years. This is the only question now that I've got before the courts, before they've ripped it out of the courts or they've pulled it out. Like, I mean, when you have a man writing from the Attorney General's office to these court clerk, these registrars, remember, those people are not members of the bar. See, and they're in a very difficult position right now, because all their life they're honorable. They're trying to do what's right, and they're following their rules and obligations that they've been trained within their job description. And remember what we talked about last week, I believe we touched on, is that every man and woman, as soon as they act in any capacity, it doesn't matter if it's in a courthouse or outside of a courthouse, as soon as you're acting in a specific job description, you have duties and obligations. You have no rights, right? You have to follow your job to the letter. Where you have rights is when you're acting, when you take that hat off I'm not acting as a court clerk now, or a judge, or a police officer. I'm simply standing here as a man or a woman. That's when you have all your rights. And that's what people need to understand, is that when we go to this courthouse, their duties and obligations from this process that they've been taught how to move claims and that through the courthouse does not trump the rights of a man or woman who are accessing it properly, moving their claim and their court. And that's why what I have before the courthouse right now is so huge. It's so huge, not for Canada, but for our world, because when the entire world sees this, do you realize, I mean, every single court case that has gone before us, every single one, it's been occurred under the rules of civil procedure. See, that's going to void, that's going to nullify, that's
null and void. Yeah.
It's going to eviscerate every single legal proceeding that's ever gone before us, right?
And it's interesting. I just learned, I'm throwing this in there, just like how you said earlier, how they just create something and put it out there, and it becomes part of the system. Mackenzie King, he decided that we're going to have Governor General, thank you. And he just decided to fix whatever solution that they needed. We need a Governor General, so we're going to appoint one, and there you go, done. And so then the Governor General now has full control, really, over.
That's right. It has that position, has full control within their service corporation.
Correct.
The services that they're operating. See how that's important. People can understand. Imagine if you take the general that you just talked about there, the Governor General. That's another thing you can also look at when you get deep into it, is that when you see the word Governor General, look to see if there is a hash mark in between the governor and the general.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
Well, when you see that, that shows you that they are controlled by Rome.
With the hashtag, or with the dash.
Yeah. You're going to see in a lot of the places.
Not hashtag, with the dash between the names.
The dash between the governor and general.
Then they're controlled by Rome.
It's under control by Rome. This is ultimately with that styling. Again, there's an incredible man you can look up online. His name is, I don't know his name. It's Romley is his name, but on YouTube, it's the Justinian Deception. Okay, the Justinian Deception. Okay. And what this man is drilled down on, absolutely incredibly, is the syntax. And syntax is the actual, how the words appear and in the correct format on a piece of paper, what it actually represents. And it is through that syntax. This is what everyone in business, especially in the courthouses, this is what they go to school and they learn about. So he's showing you their very own writings in that. And then when you see a name that's in all capital letters, the syntax, it's telling you that doesn't represent a man or a woman. Okay. It represents a corporation, right? Something other than a man or woman. It can be a legal person. See, because as we talked in before, the legal world, you were never born as a person. We are born as a man or a woman or people. We're one of the people. That's it. Never leave that square. Never allow anyone to place that, that cloak over you that you're this legal person. It was interesting. I was doing an interview with another woman earlier this week, and when she bought her home years ago, she brought this up with the real estate agent. She noticed it with her lawyer saying, hey, how come my name is in all capital letters here on this contract here for buying this property, this home? And he said, oh, don't worry about that. It's nothing. It's just sort of a technical thing. He fluffed it off.
Don't
But you see,
worry.
that's where all that deceit comes from. And she was wise enough then to kind of recognize, wait a minute, I've never written my name in upper and lower case. And that's why when you go to this public courthouse, you make sure, that's why the filing I put in is wonderful for people to read. It is so simple. You only have to read the first 6 pages or 8 pages that are in there. That shows you how a man or woman, there's the format, there's the wording, and none of it has to do with the rules of civil procedure. So this is exciting right now because, as I said, I've been battling again with these lawyers, not much of a battle. They keep trespassing on the case. That's the other trespass that can happen. So when that trespass is occurring, that simply means that there are people that are not involved in your claim or your court. Remember, say it's Bob or Susie down the street from me that trespassed against me, and I'm bringing them into court to hold them liable. Then all of a sudden, some other man or woman is writing to the registrar about my court file number, saying that it needs to be removed from the public courthouse because it's not falling under some rules of civil procedure. Remember, these people that are writing this are all members of the bar. So at that point, you simply, as you're going to see tonight, I have a live stream. It was supposed to be last night, but it's actually going to be tonight at 8 o'clock. You're going to see a follow-up to the Sekleski court, and you're going to see these communications that have come to me. And then you're also going to see how you respond back to it. So that's why this is what we're talking about here, the public courthouse. Where the rubber hits the road, it's right when you start with the court clerk at the filing window. You have to make sure that your paperwork is correct and proper. It's obviously it has to be true, but you do not use any legal terms. You do not use any of their legal forms. You show up there as the man or the woman, as king, as we're supposed to be, and you lay your property there at that public courthouse. And then after the 21 days, as the claim states, that's when you can move it if the parties have not responded. So it's very interesting what's going on right now because, you know, this has been going on for a while, for a long time in our country, in our world, but now the people are finally seeing it. And that's why this is so huge, because it really is this simple. You don't need to understand law. You just need to understand what a public courthouse means. It's not a private courthouse. And our public courthouses are being controlled and basically run in a private capacity. If we don't use the forms that the legal society uses from this private society we do not belong to, as you're seeing from all the communications that you're going to see tonight in my last week's live stream, they're trying to kick it out based on that simple thing. They're pulling this rules of civil procedure out, some section that it's not following the process or whatever, and it needs to be, you know, for some reason now my claim is all of a sudden voided. It has no merit, and it's vexatious, as they say. When if you read the claim, there's nothing vexatious about it. It is actually bringing the truth forward, and the only people that are going to make a decision whether that claim is true or not is the jury of our peers. I mean, when it's set, when the people are set in that jury, whether it's a grand jury of 25 people or if it's just a regular jury of 12 people, the jurors, my fellow men of our peers, they will understand the difference between right and wrong. They're not lawyers. They're not legal. They don't need to understand legal, as we described earlier. This is the big moment for us in this world. We're going to start holding proper jury trials, you know, trial by juries and grand juries with people that don't have to know anything about the bar. They simply are going to be presented evidence, as it always should be, what is surrounding the wrong and the harm that that man or woman has done. And that's where Norman Travesty is really going to take off. Because he has the evidence surrounding, you know, Justin Trudeau, as all of us have done. And when he brings that properly before the jury of his peers and he presents what Justin has actually done against the people, I think it's going to be very simple for the people to see that.
And if Justin no longer is prime minister, it'll be easier too, won't it?
It doesn't matter. Like I say, in the common world,
Doesn't matter.
that's why you have to realize we are all equal under the law. It doesn't matter what title you hold in this world for any service corporation or whether it's government services or if you're the head of Amazon, or it does not matter. You are still a man or a woman. And if anything that you do as a man or woman, or agents or officers under your control within your corporation, you're liable, right? It's that simple. And unless they have a contract that Norman signed that says that he cannot access a public courthouse as a man, right? Roll out the public law. That's the other big thing. They try and say in the courthouse, is this the same, you know, New Brunswick, I'm glad you brought that up, because it has got to be one of the most corrupt, you know, provinces in this country, I find, in the multiple courts that I've gone into. It's just absolutely horrific what's going on down in their courthouses. It seems to me far more extreme than it is up in here, and I think we're seeing them lead by example now of pulling this nonsense with you cannot acquire this. This is a record, okay, that they created. Fine, you don't want to give me the record. You're just going to give me the evidence when you trespassed against me. That's fine. We can still use that any which way against them. The most important thing, and God bless that man or woman that wrote to you, is that people are taking action.
What about BC? They have their own Supreme Court that's different than the Supreme Court here in Ottawa.
Well, again, the Supreme Court, remember, it's the Supreme Court of, it's not the Supreme Court of Ottawa. It's the Supreme Court of Canada, correct?
Correct. But BC has its own Supreme Court.
Okay, so again, so we have to drill down first on what is Canada.
Right.
It's a service corporation.
Right.
So it's a Supreme Court of, take Canada there at McDonald's, right? That's how you have to, so you understand what's actually going on within that system and what they've set up. So you said the BC's got their own Supreme Court. Well, that's fine. They can have one, right? They're again the service corporation. Unless you're an agent or officer that's somehow under their jurisdiction, that's where that Supreme Court where you'll go to try and get remedy. We all know you're not going to get remedy there. The same thing applies, is that who is the man or woman that sits on these Supreme Courts? They're all corporations, remember, who sits and acts as a member of this Supreme Court is going to come forward and claim that I or Amina here are property. They're never going to say that, which means they have no jurisdiction over us, which means they have no right to make any rulings against us, because they're acting in a capacity for a corporation that we have nothing to do with. The jury of our peers, the highest court in this land, is the common law court of the people. When we assemble at a public courthouse and we see the jury of our fellow man, these crown courts are inferior to the court of man, because we are the creators in this world. Remember, man then went to a private society, went off here, and they created all these rules and civil procedures. But you and I, we're still up here as a man or a woman. We have nothing to do with these legal processes, these legal systems that have been put in place.
That they're manipulating us into.
That's right. And that's how quickly they do it.
Here's a question, and I know there's a lot of people who have fear around, the system and exercising what they either know or don't know what their rights are. Is that what if they physically come to say, okay, you're arrested, or you're whatever it is, in a physical stance, that they can take you and just, regardless of what you say your rights are, when you know what they are, what happens? Like how, anyway, I'm just throwing it out there. These are thoughts.
It all comes down to knowledge, right? That's the key thing, is that once you know who you are, you have to understand. I've been in these situations before. I've been in these situations when police show up and are trying to intimidate or do something, and they're believing what they're doing. They always say, well, this is our world. That's right. That's your world. But your legal world does not come over into the world of man. And this is what they're starting to learn. So I realize it can be fearful in that, but at the end of the day, there's lots of people out there that you're seeing that are fighting back and doing it correctly, whether it's in traffic court, which is the biggest criminal organization in the world, as far as I'm concerned, after all this other stuff that's going on. Because when you think of the theft and the wrong and harm, I've gone to traffic court too, or whatever, and I do my dog and pony show there just to, just so they don't put a warrant out. But I also go there, even though we know that if they say, if you don't appear, we're going to put a warrant out for your arrest. Well, they're putting a warrant out for a piece of plastic's arrest, right? Not me, the man or the woman. But unfortunately, this ignorance that is rampant through the court system, permeates. And that's why I do go to traffic court if I ever get pulled over, and they do actually give me a ticket. Now they don't. They seem to understand when I'm talking to them. They understand that they don't want to really tangle with us anymore. But at the end of the day, like I said, for people that are concerned about all of that, learn who you are first. And once you learn these truths that we're talking about, then you understand how that man or woman is in the capacity and how they're acting before you. And then you can properly speak to them. Fear will not come over you when you're dealing with them. And what this world really needs to see is people that can walk the walk and talk the talk to help to lead them forward. And that's exactly why I'm here, right? It's not about me, but what I'm doing is a light to this world very powerfully. Watch how I act. Watch how I carry myself.
There's a shift when we do this, right? There's a shift, which affects,
huge shift. And you have to start engaging. Remember, it's the consciousness that's been corrupted from everybody. So yes, right now we're still in, if you're at the side of the road and you get pulled over and you've kind of heard about this stuff, you're going to be intimidated as all hell. But at the end of the day, like I say to people, this claim that's before the court right now, why it's so huge, this is unlike any claim that's ever been placed before the public ever in the history of this country. Why? Because it's going to create this hard reset that we've been looking for. And the minute that happens, all of these traffic courts are going to be shut down. Okay, unless you've been pulled over and you were drunk driving, God forbid you killed somebody, God forbid you damaged property or something, you're still going to be held accountable for that. As we talked about last week in the common law side, if you're drunk driving and everybody knows you don't drunk drive, or you don't get your stuff, get yourself all hung up on drugs or opiates or something, if you get pulled over and you really do something really horrible like that, it's an eye for an eye in the common law world. The jury of our peers, they can decide that. They can say, if that man totally did not have complete disregard for this, for what his responsibility is and his duty to his fellow man, and especially if it was not the first time he's been drinking, that's why you need to understand the common law is so powerful. And that's why, as you said earlier, it doesn't matter if Justin Trudeau's the man acting as prime minister for the service corporation or not. It doesn't matter if Stephen Harper is. It doesn't matter if John Chrétien is. It doesn't matter. You can go right down the list of every single man and woman that's acted as prime minister since 1974 when our Bank of Canada was taken over. Remember, all of them have been carrying forward this treason. It's huge. And that's the beauty of common law. There's no statutes of limitations. In the legal world, they put these wonderful little things in there that, oh, if you haven't come back within 7 years, well, then you have no claim, right? You can't make a claim or a court against these people in the legal world. But in the common law side, oh, there's no statutes of limitations. In fact, I don't think we touched on this last time, which is huge, is that there's two things, I mean, in the legal world and the lawful world that apply, that eviscerate, okay, any ruling, any court proceedings that have occurred. Do you want to take a guess at what they are?
Tell me.
Okay. One of them is jurisdiction, which means, remember we talked about the land, air, and water, the sea?
Yes.
So if you were moving under a legal proceeding all this time, that's admiralty law, and you were not on the land common law, that jurisdiction alone eviscerates everything because they brought you in as, again, as that fiction that was created. The other thing that also applies to both areas is if fraud was ever apparent. If fraud before, during the court case, or leading up to the order was present at any time, it eviscerates everything and the court is thrown out. So that's why when people have seen the case that I'm doing with Ozalie Casey, this is a woman who had her property stolen from her in 1996, been in her family for years. It goes back over 200 years, and this is the beauty of the common law. If you have the evidence, which we have, you can go back at any time and you can simply undo what's happened in those courthouses. And then people say, well, why haven't you done that with Ozalie, Christopher? Well, we've tried to. And this is why we're not getting access to our public courthouse, because they're saying what? The rules of civil procedure are not being followed within this filing, and they push it out. They keep us from bringing that truth into the court system, and that's why this is a death blow to the bar. It's been a long time coming, and people need to understand it's called a public courthouse for a reason, not a private courthouse. No man or woman in that public courthouse, you say to them, who is the man or woman here that has the right to deny me access to this public courthouse? Remember we talked about the right, who has rights and who doesn't? Well, everybody in there working in providing duties and good faith services, they don't have rights to block the people. So let's say once they step out of their role and they're outside of the courthouse, do they have the right to block me then? No.
Well, like Norman, when they locked him out of the courtroom.
Exactly, because it wasn't his court. You see, that's why, because the filing, he allowed it to go under a legal proceeding. He allowed this entity called the Attorney General, which has all these powers, to come in and take over his court and stay it or throw it out or do whatever he wants.
So it's not obstruction to justice because they're doing it within their legal.
Well, actually it is, because when you see what they're going against within their own filing, right? They just plaster it saying it's vexatious or it's whatever they want to throw against it, whatever they can do, they'll use to toss it out of their legal world. And that's what you're saying, what's happening with Rocco Galante. Look at Rocco. He's filed this 191-page claim to stand up for the people of this country. Why the hell is this thing not in front of the courts immediately? Why? Because he has a duty and obligation to the Crown courts, right? These legal proceedings. He's not in control of that paperwork. He's saying the court is. Well, what's the court? Well, the court is that man or woman that's wearing a black robe. See how it's compromised right then and there. We do not have people that belong to a society that we do not belong to, that is basically only looking at everything under one blinder, right? He's completely ignoring lawful. People are showing as a man or woman. The person, the man or woman before them is only a person. It has to respond to them. It has to be a defendant, has to be a complainant. All these various terms and names that they've placed to people in this world, that's what he has control and duty over, and he doesn't want to go outside of that conversation. That's why they can't hear you in their world. Right? When even though you're speaking to them, they can't hear you. That's why you have to put it to them in paper, because the paper they cannot get away from. And you always stand on whatever that paperwork is. And that's why what's going on right now, all of the stuff we're talking about, people thinking, oh my God, this is huge. Yes, it is. But don't be concerned about it, because you've been literally brought this truth now right at the moment when we're all about collectively in this country and world to right this incredible wrong that's been occurring for so long at our public courthouse. And when that happens, all the traffic courts disappear. The taxation is going to have a hard reset. It's absolutely incredible. And that's why everybody needs to understand the power of the simple claim we have before us and the power of a public courthouse. I mean, it's so important when you understand the simplicity of what I've talked about here. You speak that to the people at the courthouse, and you're gonna have them. They're gonna say, well, you're right. I can't deny you access to this courthouse to seek the administration of justice, and I can't trespass upon your case, your paperwork. I can't be putting papers into your claim and your filing. I have no standing in it. Only the people that you're making a claim against, they have the right. okay, to put a defense into your court that you're moving against them. That's where their paperwork goes. It doesn't come from a man acting as a lawyer and then he's trying to drag in all the society's rules, codes, regulations, statutes, whatever, right, to basically rock my court, to try and throw it out and toss it out. That's a trespass. And
Okay.
that's the most beautiful thing right now that everybody's seeing.
Interesting. Wow. What a wealth of information that we so need to know. Thank you. I have one thing I want to ask you real quickly. I started a petition with Norman, and it is a petition to hold the RCMP accountable to doing their job, to investigate with the SNC-Lavalin scandals and the WE scandals and that. And I thought, you know, having a petition, a paper petition going across the country and having Canadians stand up, get up, come over, sign it, send it in. It's a physical thing. It's a physical engagement. It's a consciousness shift. You know, it's not just pushing a button on a cell phone. And this is why I thought maybe that would be a step in a direction. Now, you know, we're always told, well, the petition won't do anything. And I agree, like it won't do anything. Why won't it do anything? Where and how did we push that forward?
Well, that's great. I'm glad you've brought this up. Your heart, like so many other people, I mean, is totally in the right place, right? The problem is the words again that you're using.
Right.
Okay. A master, the creators, we do not petition or protest against our servants. That's the first thing everyone needs to understand. So you never use the word petition or protest. Okay?
I don't use protest, but I didn't know that about petition. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You're petitioning someone. You're not petitioning. We want to make a very, very, very strong claim against them. All right. You make a statement of truth. That's how I like to word it. You get hundreds of thousands, millions of people making a statement of truth to not the RCMP. Remember, if you're standing in court and you're saying, I want the RCMP to come forward here, is there a man or woman that's going to come forward called the RCMP? No, that's a fictional name. Remember, you go after the top man or woman. So now it changes. This is when the rubber hits the road. You're making a statement of truth against a woman known as Brenda Lukey. Okay. She is the head of the service corporation called the RCMP. Right? Mm-hmm. That's who you bring into court. You hold that woman accountable because every agent and officer under that hood of that service corporation is under her control. And she's in big trouble already with the Ozzy case that I've got that I demonstrated last week. Both her and Bob Paulson, the prior man that was acting as commissioner, because I've got the evidence showing that they have created massive malfeasance against just Ozzy, and they are completely how it ties into what Norman's talking about. It's malfeasance at what Brenda Lukey has done, right? Surrounding this Justin Trudeau. They are sitting there doing nothing, right? They're not doing their jobs and holding people accountable.
Exactly.
And again, it's because they're listening to what? Lawyers, right? They've got, remember, the RCMP, the service corporation, it's a corporation. Every corporation has to have lawyers. Right? Because that's what they operate in, contract law. So they're looking at all these, remember, all these duties and obligations and that they're supposed to be required to do under their job description, Brenda Lukey or whatever, and they're saying, hey, they're blind to everything else. They're saying, hey, we're doing everything we're allowed to do within our legal world, what we've created here in our corporation, right? But they're completely ignoring the rights, the law of the land. See, and this is where this duality exists. So I think that's a great idea what you're doing. What you should just simply do is make it like a statement of truth, or just say, I claim, or I, and then put in the square brackets, we the people claim. And then you get everyone to sign a simple statement that's up top that, like, you know what, I should send you mine that I did for a case up here in Burlington. It's very simple, very powerful, and it's actually going to be used in a case moving forward here too. And you're also correcting the consciousness of that man or woman like Brenda Lukey that'll probably just ignore it anyways. The reason they ignore it is because they've gotten away with all of this corruption for so long.
Of course.
Armina, right? They've never been dragged into a court as a man or a woman. They know that whatever they do, they can just stick their lawyers on it. And then the lawyers are going to drag it out for 7 or 8 years, all these costs. And they've got unlimited money because, you know, they're part of the government for all these lawyers, like they've done with Ron Traversy or Norman Traversy. So it's very simple once you understand it. By getting the rules of civil procedure, see what I mean? That one fact. Once we address that doesn't apply to a man or woman, well, guess what? All of a sudden, Brenda Lukey cannot bring in a lawyer. Brenda Lukey cannot rely on her rules and statutes and codes. She cannot rely on her duties and obligations. She cannot rely on what her corporate structure, which her mandate is, and how her employment, what, you know, she's got a list of things. I believe Trudeau writes to the RCMP commissioner every time when they come in, reminding them of what their duties and obligations and blah, blah, blah are. So that's why this is huge, because this rules of civil procedure is going to open up the door for everybody. And I'm going to be so happy for Norman when he has finally got the teeth you know, to be able to go after this and bring the people and everybody into the courthouse with the evidence. And he's going to hold Justin, the man Trudeau, accountable for what he's doing.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And this is why I saw the value in you, and I thought, okay, Norman needs to talk to you, because I saw, you know, you can't go in the front door. You got to go in the ways that work for you. And anyway, this is why we're having this conversation. So fantastic. And you and I need to talk more about the petition and get that together. And please send me that sample. That would be fantastic. Yes. I would love that. It's all about for Canada and Canadians and anyone else in other countries, whatever it is that they're dealing with, you know. So the
You're
work
so
is
right. It's for our world right now, because
it's not for me.
And it's not for it's not, well, it is.
It's for all of us.
It's for all of us, right?
Exactly.
This is why you're here. This is why I've done the work that I've done. This is why all these lights are coming together to bring a very simple, powerful truth. And I've just been blessed enough. And again, it's not an I love me thing. It's not Chris's way. I hear some people say, well, there's other ways that we can go about this. Really? Do you want to show me how quickly and how powerful it is outside of my way that I've showed everybody, using the truth and the facts and the knowledge? This is a death sentence to the bar. Okay. It's a death sentence to corruption in this world, because the rules of civil procedure, that one thing, has been used against we the people, from blocking us and preventing us from accessing the public courthouses properly. That's all we need to bring into the light. You don't need to understand law. You don't even understand how to access the courthouse. Just understand that a handful of people cannot write rules of civil procedure and then apply them to millions of people that ultimately trespasses against us when we're seeking the administration of justice at a public courthouse, right? It's that powerful. And that's all everyone in our country needs to drill down on. And we can be a light. Like right now, this same truth is being shown in Australia, Scotland, the UK. The light's gone on with everybody now. We don't need to get in all these long conversations and debates about legal and lawful and even the unlawful trespass. Yes, that's valid. You've got to learn why that occurs to you and when you're born and how that affects you through your life. But this drills now right down to the simplicity. I've got this claim in a public courthouse where it's laying. It's a light for our country and our world. And the bar has got to come back, or the registrar general's got to, or the registrar at the courthouse. Someone's got to write back to me now. When you see the communications that get shown to the world tonight on my live stream, it's going to be evident to everybody. They can't come forward and say that A, I'm property and they can administrate over me, and B, that the rules of civil procedure apply to I am man, because I'm not part of their society. I've not consented to it, and there's no contract that I've agreed to it. And as soon as that gets done, boom, the bar is moved out of the way, and now a man or woman has that access to the public courthouse to seat a jury of our peers and look out. Look out. Okay, that's when this is all going to come down quickly, because where I'm coming at this from, even within this estate claim for Michael, it takes out everything. This is what I want everyone to know. It's going to reset the CRA is not going to be taking taxation from people anymore. It's going to restore our public courthouses. And now every single man and woman in this country and world is going to be shown how they are held liable for what they do. Doesn't matter what job description you work in, people. If you're trespassing against us, especially at a public courthouse, and you're blocking people from getting in there, or once we get in there, you've not been recognized as a man or a woman, you're letting us go along with this being represented as a legal person, which your society did and created all on its own. Oh, you've got some explaining to do, Lucy, as they used to say from the old Lucy and Ricardo show. But, like I said, it's a very great time, and that's why this discussion's so powerful for us right now.
They really are. They're so important. And honestly, right now, like now, it is, I'm talking to interesting people, and I cannot express how important it is right now, everybody, right now. So motivate yourself, do something that you've never done before, find your purpose. This can be a purpose, and feel good about it. Because when you do find a purpose and do something and act on that, you feel fantastic inside. And we have huge amounts of depression and so many things because we are not being purposeful enough in the right way. So here's a chance. Here's a way to do that. And I can't thank you enough. This is wonderful information.
Yeah, it's great. And it's truth. Remember this, people. We're not having a morning tea here. Amina and I just talking about the favorite color of drapes or cars that we like or something. This is deadly serious, because literally the balance of mankind is hanging by a thread right now.
Yeah, it is.
And you know what I know is going on in all the hearts and minds of my fellow man and woman right around this world is they are not buying. They're realizing now all the stuff that's coming through the mainstream media is a lie to them, but it's because that's all they see. Yeah. And they cannot realize that there is this underlying massive swelling of truth that's coming up here, and it's going to pop. These like CBC is It needs to be liquidated into oblivion. I mean, they are lying to the people in this country. They have
Yeah,
been for a
pure
very long
evil.
time, and
Yep.
people need to see that. That's also part of the head of the snake. We've got to go en masse around these news stations or whatever, and we've got to put everyone in there on notice. Like
Yeah.
the Nuremberg trials, you can't come out and say, oh, I didn't know, but meanwhile you're out there terrorizing the whole country with your broadcast every 5 seconds. This has to come to a stop. That's why I take a few minutes. I ask everyone to do, and they're doing it on my live streams after, go and write to people that are the program directors at radio stations or your local television stations, and simply write to them powerfully that what is going on here, that the people know that there is this colossal lie surrounding COVID-19. It's coming out. The information is all over my website. You can use links to help them there, but put them on notice. This is what has to happen right around the world. All these people that are operating in these capacities, be it at a hospital, be it at put them on notice that we have the truth here, and these masks that you're forcing everyone to wear is actually causing enormous wrong and harm. It actually takes people down the road of taking them into heart attacks or compromising their immune systems. The knowledge, the papers that are out on this are already there, but the mainstream media is not bringing it forth. So you've got a duty to learn who you are, learn this truth right now, and don't get caught up in all of this theater that we're seeing around us. Don't let this fear drive you anymore. Start coming to Amina's shows and learning who you are and the truth. And like I said, we're going to get this done very quickly now. It's very exciting. So the rubber's hit the road, and we're going to see what's happened. I need all of Canada to be all over this case with me, because if they try to kick this...
We need Canada to rise up. We need you to rise up. Everybody, whether you're masked, unmasked, yellow jacket, not yellow jacket, whatever. Just we need everyone to rise up and take this initiative for yourselves. And really, you have your, you are speaking for your own destiny, your own path here. It's like, you don't have to. There's a lot of divide and differences. Well, regardless, what we're saying is all the same for everybody. It has nothing to do with any of the other things.
And use the power of the internet. Okay, people, remember.
Yes.
First and Second World Wars, our fellow men and women, they went overseas and they gave their lives. All right, we're talking guns, we're talking horrific things, bullets, people being blown up to bits, okay? Just horrific things. This is what they did so that we were supposed to have these freedoms moving forward. So how hard is it for every man and woman out there listening to this right now to get off your rear ends and get to that computer and start accessing it? Use it as the tool for good. Start communicating en masse where you can. Every Facebook post, just post these truths everywhere. Get people aware and awake. That is how we push back to the system. And eventually this truth now is going to break through. And I'm so grateful that we have, I wish we had millions of people like you, Amina, but hopefully they're going to be coming soon, that are also like broadcasting and writing and communicating.
They're there, and we'll connect collective consciousness. It happens, and we know that. So, and it's Amina. Just wanted to let you know.
Oh, sorry, Amina. It's still, it's afternoon. My mouth has been going all morning here. So it's, sorry, Amina, sorry.
It's no problem. That's okay. But thank you. Let's cut it short. I wanted to keep this to half hour. We went a little bit over, but that's okay. A lot of important stuff here. The main stuff is in the first half hour that we really wanted out there. So please stay tuned for the next interview that we're going to do, right, Christopher? And we're going to get more information out. So looking forward to that. And we'll see you then, everybody. So take care. Thank you. And God bless.
God bless.